demographic changes, political structures. That's the more rational side of it. So both of them are there. And depending on which AOK you're working with, it's going to emphasize or pull out one more than the other.
Yeah, definitely one more than the other, but I think that that you always want to go back to looking at other perspectives, okay? And so, although what you say makes very good sense, I think that you would have to show acknowledgement that there is still room for emotion in history, which is kind of a weird argument to make, because
about Hitler and not be confused about whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. That's an emotion, and you should have the right emotion in a case that's that clear cut.
Yeah. Clap it up for Hitler's a bad guy. Oh, jeez. All right, we're wading into territory we don't want to be in right now. I think the point is, I liked definitely what you said a lot. I think just make sure. So people ask about what's the difference between counter arguments and perspectives, and I tried to. Can you switch? Actually, I can do it if I find my freaking laser pointer. Poof, 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 poof. Okay. Consider other perspectives to your examples. Consider counter-arguments to your position. So the difference between a counter-argument and a perspective is that perspectives are for your examples. Okay? It's just another way to look at it. So what you said about the desire in history to be more descriptive, I think makes sense. Just acknowledge the other perspective that it's kind of impossible to avoid bias, and there is an important historical aspect to how people felt about these things. Fear was an instrument of Hitler, and so was exhaustion and different other psychological manipulative sort of ideas. So, to ignore, there's a great Matrix quote from Maus, when Maus is promoting the woman in the red dress. If you've seen the Matrix, so Maus is a programmer, and he designs the woman in the red dress as a distraction for Neo when he goes into the Matrix. And so Neo's just walking along, and sure enough, there's a woman in a red dress, a tight skirt, walks by. He watches her, and sure enough, he turns around, and he's got an agent with his gun to his face. And so Morpheus comes in and says, "Did you see the agent? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress?" Something like that. And so of course, Neo was looking at the woman in the red dress. And so afterwards, the digital pimp, Maus, starts to offer up the woman in the red dress to Neo. He says, if you'd like, I can arrange a more personal, interaction with you two. And somebody says, yeah, the digital pimp hard at work. So Maus says, well, say what you want, but to deny our own impulses is to deny what it is that makes us human. And I think we have to remember that here, in the sense that we can try to be unbiased, but we always have to remember that we are humans, and that that's part of our entire scope of understanding. So remember other perspectives, but really good questions there. All right, so let's move on to 3. After we do 3, we're going to take a break, okay? Clap it up for a break. All right, so 3. Okay, does it matter that your personal circumstances influence how seriously your knowledge is taken? This is one of the first that I feel IB is wading into a sort of topical sort of conversation about, what's happening in the world today, which is that so much of this seems to be true. okay? That there is an increased awareness of personal circumstances, whether that be gender identity to affiliation with groups, economic, socioeconomic status, and things like that. This is probably, the most semi-controversial that you'll get from this. So obviously keywords matter. Is it important? What does it mean to matter? What are personal circumstances? And I pulled this off of, that standard, we do not discriminate against, So that's all of these things, right? Race, ethnicity, gender, age, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, disability, or marital status. Or does it also mean your job, skill set, and economic situation? Okay? Because that's actually not in that list of things that we don't discriminate against, right? Economic status. And I think that that is probably a major source of discrimination in a lot of ways. What does it mean to influence? And what does seriously mean? How seriously your knowledge is taken. Does it mean that, is it accepted or not? Is it acknowledged? Is there awareness or is there rejection? Okay, so these are some of the keywords on what I think is a pretty interesting one. Those of you who are activist-minded, this seems like a good one because it has a lot of stuff. Okay, all right, here you go, Mr. Dunn.
All right. This one struck me and maybe it's because I'm an elitist, but this one struck me as relatively simple, and the effort is to struggle to make it more interesting. And you do that by talking about paradigm shifts and stuff like that. But anyway, so when I first saw this, what I thought was, well, what do you mean by personal circumstances? The key point is going to be, are they relevant to your claim of knowledge, or are they irrelevant? And there's a world of difference between those two things. So, from an elitist point of view, experts versus amateurs. I have no problem siding with experts. Certified versus uncertified. Again, I side with the certified. Proven versus unproven. Yeah, I'm going to go with the proven. The quality of your knowledge, and of the processes by which you produced it, and the social proxies for quality. So there's real quality. I mean, if you're going to college, you're listening to a professor, if his thoughts are coherent and persuasive, you're impressed by him, you're won over by him or her. But we also have proxies for that. I mean, just the title, professor, automatically, there's kind of an implication that you know what you're talking about. But some professors age and go senile, and there's a point at which their certification no longer describes their activity. Another form of proxy is, and you're all deeply familiar with this, or you should be anyway, from writing your extended essays, that's what it means when you cite a scholarly source, a credible source. You're not, if you think about what you do when you're doing that, you're typically not making the full argument. You're not justifying the claim you're making. You're taking a shortcut. You're saying, I'm going to put this claim in here, and don't worry, it's backed up by so-and-so who's a heavyweight. So you're relying on the proxy, just the reputation, essentially, to back up a claim that you don't have time to make the full argument for, or maybe you don't know how to make the full argument for it. So bottom line, we have real expertise, real certification, which is the proof is in the pudding, and then we have proxies for it because we don't all have time to research and think through everything, so we have to rely on other people. And when we do that, we should rely on people who are reputable and credible sources rather than the reverse. All right, so so that's one whole line of thinking about this. But stereotyping by any characteristic irrelevant to the quality of your thinking, e.g. social class, ethnicity, gender, that's obviously wrong and bogus, and it's a bad habit. It's both unfair and it's misleading to whoever follows that. So, when are one's personal circumstances relevant to the quality of one's knowledge, the product and thinking, the process. See, education in a specialized expertise, that's what you're all here for. That's why you're all planning on going to college, because no one will take you seriously if you're at the pharmaceutical counter and you don't know pharmacy. I don't want to take the medicines you give me. Experience in a profession or in life, that's more day-to-day. That's not, a matter of, you may not have taken exams to do that, but you've built up a knowledge of your working environment. You know how to do it. And this is where I use this wonderful Oscar Wilde quote. Age and wisdom often come together, but sometimes age comes alone. But is